That's right. You see him there. We welcome in a man who has a little movement to him. In his 7-year career, this pitcher went 24-16, including one shutout, and one save with a career 3.86 ERA over 347.2 innings, sprinkling in a 2016 All-Star appearance. Now, the movement wasn't just from throwing, but all the ventures he dabbles into. He's a big animal guy, whether it's fishing with his son, holding up his dog, or freeing a trapped hawk. A yoga enthusiast, sport card collector, coffee aficionado, the man who made his living off the knuckle, which is why they call him Knucksy. No, I didn't get any of this info wrong as we welcome in Stephen Wright. What is going on?
What's up, guys? How y'all doing?
Stephen, thank you for joining the pod. First and foremost, how are you and your family doing? You know, obviously with kind of all this COVID stuff going up in the holidays, it's wild time. So how are you and your family?
Well, man, we're good, bro. We're blessed to live in Tennessee where we've been free as a bird. And so it's been nice, man, to be able to enjoy, just the regular festivities. Like last year, obviously, was cut short because of COVID. But this year, man, we're up and going. And so it's really relaxing out here, man. It's cold, but it's nice.
And I love that we talked about animals in the introduction. You say free as a bird, just like that hawk you freed.
Yeah, I'm a hawk wrangler now.
Oh, I like that. All right, I put it in the bio as well.
There you go.
I want to touch on your playing career, and I like to start with the early years. You were raised in California and attended Valley View High School. You then played your college ball at University of Hawaii. So it's fair to say that you always played in nice weather. Maybe that's why you live in the cold weather now. And your junior year, I mean, you really burst on the scene. 11-2 with a 2.30 ERA, over 110 innings, earning second team All-American. And I mean, I know Marty wants to kind of touch on that college experience.
Yeah. Hey, great. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for being on the show and everything like that. And I just wanted to, because I'm just overall curious. Growing up in Torrance, Southern California, I spent a lot of time myself in Los Angeles. It's beautiful weather almost all the time. Then you move out to Hawaii, which is more beautiful weather. So can you kind of talk about your experience going living in Hawaii and everything that goes with college there?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up. So I was just born in Torrance. I know it's funny. You're not the first one to think that I grew up there. I don't even remember it.
Okay.
I grew up in Wright, which is just east out in Riverside area.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, I going to high school in Valley View, I was actually a much better hitter at the time than I was a pitcher, but pitching came a little bit easier for me as far as making adjustments and stuff like that. So when I went to University of Hawaii, one of the reasons I went there was to do both, like to play position and to pitch. And then obviously I went to just be a pitcher only. But it was tough at first, man. You go from living, on the mainland, and you go to an island, and it's a different culture, right? And once you learn it and embrace it, it's unbelievable. I got hanai'd into a family, which basically means I got adopted into a family out there, and I still talk to them to this day. I mean, and they kind of opened my eyes to like the Hawaiian lifestyle, right? And I love it. It just sucks that it's so far. Expensive to get over there, but man, it is. If you ever get a chance to go over there and really embrace the Hawaiian culture, man, it's something that's definitely worth doing.
Yeah, and I've got to spend some time there myself, and it's absolutely beautiful. And piggybacking off your college days, so when you were a college pitcher, what did your pitching arsenal look like?
So I was low 90s, touching mid 90s. My bread and butter was like my slider. It was, some people call it a slider, some people call it a cutter. I had a curveball, I had a okay changeup, but I just had really good control. Like I didn't walk many people at all. I can't remember what it was, but like that was the thing. Like I had very solid pitching mechanics, which allowed me to repeat my delivery, repeat my release point, and with that comes consistency in the zone and being able to command the zone. And in college, man, like they give you like 4 to 6 inches off the plate. Okay. And if you can consistently hit it, I mean, it's really not that hard to pitch at the college level because of the expanded zones. and we were able to capitalize on that. And playing in Hawaii is a graveyard. I mean, you throw a 3-0 fastball down the middle, tell them to see how far they can hit it. It's not at the winning track. The ball goes nowhere. So, like, with all that, like, I was taught very well. I had very good mentors throughout my, playing career, especially in college and high school, young on. It's like, you use the field to your advantage. Like you pitch to the scoreboard too. So it's like every now and then, it's like if I fall behind, I look up and we're winning 5-0. What's the worst case scenario? They're going to hit a solo home run. It's like, okay, I'll just throw it down the middle, see how far they can hit it. And it's always caught.
There we go. Well, and were there any pitchers that you grew up, maybe not idolizing, but, you saw your stuff and it kind of reminds you of a certain player?
Not really. I mean, I kind of watched, like, for me, like, I like the guys that are competitive, right? So growing up for me, it was like Clemens, even watching guys like Verlander early in his career, guys like, even like Jim Abbott, Mike Witts, guys like that, they just compete, right? Like guys that just go up there. And it's like, for me, it's like, if I'm going to get beat, I'm going to get beat with my best pitch in the zone, and the worst thing you can do is walk people because you can't defend that. You can never defend a walk. So it's like, I'm better off having a guy get a hit and get on base, because it's like, all right, at least there was a chance that he was going to get out. But if I walk him, it's pointless. You can't steal first base. You only can earn it, right? Whether it's given to you by a walk or a hit. And so that's kind of what my mentality was, in college, and then even as the transition into the knuckleball.
And I think what's really interesting is, as a baseball fan, you think about Coors Field and, where the Rockies play, and that's a hitter's advantage with the thin air. And it kind of sounds like the opposite in Hawaii, where it's so warm and the ball doesn't carry as far, where you can throw a 3-0 fastball and say, look, I'm not going to give you a free pass. You have to earn it, whether it be a hit, whether, you expect a certain pitch that's coming. And I mean, look, Steven, your success didn't go unnoticed. You were selected by Cleveland in the second round of the 2006 MLB draft. Now, from 2007 to 2012, you played MLB minor league baseball with Lake County Captains, Kinston Indians, Akron Arrows, Columbus Clippers, all affiliates of the Cleveland baseball organization. But I know Marty wants to go back on your time in the minors.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, especially right now, Stephen, with everything that's been going on, over the last few years, there's been like a growing focus on the conditions and the treatment of minor league ball players. After spending 5 years in the minors, from, your perspective, from what you saw, what are like the biggest opportunities of improvement you saw that Major League Baseball teams could make?
Oh man, I don't think we can get to all of them in 30 minutes.
Shoot me an email after.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is like, you do have an opportunity to make a lot of money, right? Professional baseball.
Oh, it's hard to hear you, Steven. I think you may be on the microphone. There we go.
Is that better? Sorry.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, what were you saying? No worries.
When it comes to the minor leagues, it's like you might remember my first tax return. I think it was like $9,000 for the year, right? And so it's like, you got to go play either winter ball or, for me, like early on in my career, I was blessed that I had a big enough signing bonus that I didn't have to really worry about working in the minor league or in the off season. But then it's like all of a sudden you're year 4 or year 5, and it's like, wow, like, you want to invest that. You don't necessarily want to live off of it. So you start playing winter ball. I worked at Amazon Fulfillment Center for one off season. Wow. It was like slave labor, walking up to 30 miles a day, right? And it's like, for me, I lucky enough that I knew that there was an end date to that job. But there's some people that was what they were using to make a living, and I applaud them for that. But when it comes to the minor leagues, I mean, you're making nothing. We had 6 guys into one apartment before because we couldn't afford to do that. And they want you to eat healthy. They want you to do this, but it's like, you're literally getting like $15 a day for food on the road. Right. And then at home, you get nothing. So you're eating whatever the clubbies put out, and the clubbies are the hardest workers on any organization. I don't care what anybody says, but they can only do so much. Right. Especially in the minor leagues, because they're not making money either. And so it's like they're trying to do what they can, knowing that they're only going to get $10 a day from a player or $8 a day or whatever the dues are. And so they're putting out stuff like spaghetti and meatballs, right? Something that you can just make a lot of. But do the bus trips. I mean, the whole thing just it's fun for like 2 years. And then you're like, dude, this is a freaking grind. Like, And I know, like, you guys interviewed, Ty, right? So I played with Ty, and it's like we sit there and we used to talk about it. It's just not fair. But you also have an opportunity to make a lot of money, but the chances of you actually getting to that point is slim.
And that's what we were talking about. And there's actually news that came out today that MLB teams were colluding with one another, instead of competing for minor leaguers, saying, hey, like, let's not compete so that the pool shrinks and that we have more leverage in our favor. And, I think people see the astronomical salaries that, the Mike Trouts and the Fernando Tatises and the Max Scherzers make, and they think that that's somewhat normal without realizing that's the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. And just
Yeah.
how bad the conditions are for the majority of people that are chasing their dream.
Well, even guys in the big leagues, right? You make it to the big leagues in your first, like, if you think about when you get drafted, they have you for 6 years under a minor league contract. And then when you get to the big leagues, they have you for 6 more years, right? So that's 12 years if you ride the whole thing out, right? So most of the time guys don't make it to that, but you feel like the average is, I mean, I don't know what it is, but I'm assuming it's probably 6, 7 years, right? And so, like, even when you get to the big leagues, you got to get to 3 years before you get any significant, bonus or, addition to your already. And yes, you are making good money. There's no doubt about that, but it's not guaranteed. They can release you at any time and you get nothing. Right. So, they ask us to go put our bodies on the line for all this money. We have the opportunity of making, but yeah, it's not like that for everybody. Right. There are a select few that deserve what they've gotten because they did the grind, they did the gruel of, playing, on an everyday basis and stuff like that. And they're not getting, they don't get hurt. But for the majority of the people, man, like you're still making good money and it is a great opportunity. It's a great life. But dude, when you're done, like you're putting your body on the line and then you're just done. Right. Like you're just like, all right, see you later. Right. So even in the big leagues, man, like you're making good money, but you got to think about the expenses that come with playing in the big leagues. Like Boston, like it's $7,500 for an apartment, right? You got to do furniture, and you got your other house, that you're living on in the off season. So there's a lot of expenses. So it's not like you're just riding off in the sunset with $500,000, right? And it's not guaranteed. So now you got to save it because you don't know, you might get released and never have that opportunity again.
It's true.
Yeah, so there's a lot that go on other than just playing in the big leagues, man. There's a lot of stress off the field that has nothing to do with baseball.
So before we get to your time in Boston, because I do have a question about your minor league career. There's some up and down years, but I look at, for example, your 2009 season. You're 10-0 with a 2.48 ERA, 2 saves and 5 holds over 87 innings. You were a high draft pick of Cleveland. Did they say why they didn't bring you up, like not even in a relief role?
I didn't throw hard enough. They said my stuff, they thought by moving me to the bullpen that my stuff would improve, but my numbers were the same. My numbers actually got better, but because I didn't throw, that was when in 2009, that's when teams are going after guys that just threw hard, like 95 plus. Like I'd hit 94, 95, but I was 91, 92, pretty consistent, but I didn't throw hard enough. They were looking for guys that they didn't care where it went. They wanted guys throwing hard, and they said, we'll figure out how to teach them to command it, but we want velocity. And so that's one of the reasons I didn't even get a big league invite the next year, because they said that my stuff wasn't what they thought it was going to be by moving me to the bullpen.
So I think that's really interesting. And we had Pat Light on the show earlier, and he was somebody that could top 100, and they wanted him to throw that rather than his splitter, which batters were hitting less than 100 on. And there was such an emphasis on throwing heat. So in 2011, you and Cleveland, you guys make a collective decision to attempt to be a knuckleballer. Now, I'm curious how that conversation went. Is that an idea that's thrown out to pitchers frequently to, try to revive their careers?
No. So, in 2010, I was struggling. I started in Columbus, got sent down to Akron, and I was just struggling. Like I would have really good outings, but then when I had a bad outing, it was like bad. And one day I was messing around, kind of over it. And I hopped up on the mound and I started throwing the knuckleball to our catcher who was just waiting for it, Miguel Perez. He's a Double-A manager for Altoona now, and he had a tough time catching it. And so Jason Bure and Greg Hibbard, who were my pitching coach and special assistant, were watching it. And so from that point on, I started throwing it as like an out pitch. and I had really good results. Like my velo went up. That's when I started throwing like 94, 95 with a knuckleball. It was more like a split. Really, it wasn't what it ended up being. And I was throwing that at like 86 to 88. And the next year going into spring training, I was throwing hard again, and I was throwing the knuckleball as an out pitch, having good success. And then the Indians brought in Tom Candiotti, and I worked with him for a little bit. When he was like, "Hey, it's pretty good, man. You just gotta throw it, right?" So I was like,
Mhm.
they basically were like, "Hey, you either do this or we're gonna release you." And so I was like, "All right, well, I don't want to get released. I'm 25 or 26, whatever I was, and the last thing I want to do is be a free agent at 26 with no dabble of AAA time, right?" So I was like, "All right, I'll give it a go." But we didn't know anything about it because this was before RA came onto the scene with his harder, knuckleball. So all we knew in our lifetime was
Tim Wakefield, probably.
yeah, it was Wakey.
Steve Sparks.
Yeah, Steve
That's who I saw
Sparks.
as a kid.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, exactly. So and they didn't really throw it that hard. And so that's what I was trying. I was trying to go from 94 to throwing something at 65. And it was like I just couldn't. I was super inconsistent. But I will say this, Mark Shapiro basically was like, whatever you need, we're not going to release you. If you do this knuckleball, we're not going to release you. We need you just to get innings. And I bounced around. I did every team in the Indians organization in the first 3 months of the season. I mean, I
Wow.
was just bouncing around. I ended up in Akron for the majority, like the second half, which was cool. And then I remember I had a game when I realized that I might be able to do this. Is I had a game in Richmond. I'll never forget. I threw 8 innings, I think 1 run, and it felt like I was barely throwing the knuckleball, but I was super fluid. I was super like consistent with my mechanics, dude. I was throwing it like 79, 80 miles an hour. And I was like, well, that's it, right? Like, I don't need to throw it hard. I can just throw it hard. And then it kind of evolved. But I came back in 2012 and I banged it. I was like, I can't do this. I played winter ball and I was like, I'm done. I was like, I can't do this. It's too inconsistent. I don't know how to throw it for strikes. I was like, I don't care if it moves a lot. It doesn't matter how much it moves if you can't throw it for a strike. And then Mark Shapiro came to the rescue again and was like, what do you need? And I said, from everybody I talked to, they said I needed to go work with Charlie Huff. So I was like, if I can get with Charlie Huff, I think that would change my mind on trying to really pursue this. So he was like, all right. So he was like, if you talk to Charlie, I'll talk. And I can't think who the GM of the Dodgers was at the time. But he was like, I'll talk to him. I'll tell him that you got my blessing. If Charlie's cool with it and they're cool with it, we'll set it up. And so I ended up working with Charlie, and 20 minutes with Charlie Huff changed my life. It changed my entire career just because it's not, I mean, we don't have enough time to talk about how, but basically it's like you got to think about being in a tunnel, and it's all about repeating your delivery and your release point and staying consistent. You want to throw it as hard as you can without overthrowing it. It's like anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to stay consistent. You got to stay down the hallway, because if you start going left or right, the ball will follow your hand no matter what. So if I can consistently release it in the same spot with the same arm path, it's going to give me a higher possibility of throwing it for a strike. And just like those type of words that, he was talking and then throwing, I was like, oh my God. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, and then I had a really good 2012 year. And that's when I got traded.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like you read my notes, or you know who we're talking about, because you lead right in. You lead right into my next point. Boston acquires you the following season. It's probably the best thing that happened for your career. In 2013, you made 4 appearances with a 2-0 record. You won the Lou Gorman Award, which is given to the Red Sox minor league player who has demonstrated dedication and her perseverance in overcoming obstacles while working his way to the major league team, which that's you in a nutshell right there. So you flirt with the majors and minors in 2014, 2015. You show some potential. Well, I want to go to 2016, which is where you really made a name for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That year, you go 13-6, a 3.3 ERA, 127 strikeouts over 156.2 innings, which was more than double than any previous year. That was when you got your all-star appearance. It's fair to say that's the most accomplished season. What was the reason for the breakout? Was it more confidence, experience, just the Red Sox gave you a longer leash?
It going into that year, that's when I really turned the point when it came to like working out. Like I've always worked out, but I always went in the off season hurt. Like, and so like going into 16, I had a concussion from previous in 15. And so I just, and it's crazy because I went around the world 3 times in 2015 off season going into 16. And it was like just seeing, cause I did like this thing called a USO tour. So like going overseas with the soldiers and armed forces and like just seeing what they went through and like learning kind of like the mental side of like longevity and consistency and just so a little bit of what I've learned there and then working out, going into 16, I didn't even think I was going to make the team. Like I thought I was going to get released. And so it was crazy. Like I felt really good. I was physically good. And I think being physically strong and physically ready helps you mentally. And so I'm a big believer in that. It's like, look good, feel good, play good. Like it's a good saying, like, because it's true, you go in, you feel good. I felt great. I felt like I was throwing the ball really well, but I didn't have a spot. Like I didn't have a starting spot. Like, yeah, I can do long relief, but I don't have options. Right. So it's like, I'm an easy trade. I'm an easy designation because they can do it under certain, at certain times where people fill their rosters. And so there's not really a spot. And that's kind of what I was like. I was playing because I thought I was going to get released. I thought I was going to get traded or something. I never thought I was going to be on the team, especially as a starter. But then when Eddie Rodriguez got hurt, it kind of came down between me and 2 other guys for that 5th spot. And I kind of had an idea towards when he got hurt. I was like, all right, I'm going to be on this team, but at what role? Like, I don't know my role, like probably long relief like I had done the previous years. And then I don't know, man. Like, I had a pretty good spring. I didn't feel great in spring, but like I felt confident. I was like, all right, I'm good. But every time I went out there, I thought I'm going to get designated. I was like, every single time I pitched, I was like, if I don't do good, I'm gone because I'm the 5th starter, right? Like I got skipped the first, I pitched against Toronto 3 straight starts. In Montreal, 1, Toronto, and Boston, but that was over a span of a month. Right. So like I kept getting skipped, but then it's like all that my goal was is like, just go as deep as I can. Just go as deep as I can. I can't get released. I don't want to get released.
Pitch against a team that's not Toronto.
Exactly. And I was like, God, at that time they had one of the best lineups in the game, right?
Encarnacion, Bautista.
Yeah, Bautista, Tulowitzki. I mean, all those guys. They were really good lineup. Same thing with Baltimore, right? I felt like I lined up with Baltimore all the time too, and they had Trumbo and Davis and Machado.
In all of those stadiums.
Pitching in Camden, yeah.
Those stadiums are tough.
Yeah, really tough. Ball flies there. And so it was weird because like I honestly thought the whole time, all the way up, I would say probably into early June, I was worried about getting released or getting traded. And then it's like all of a sudden I look up and I'm like, I'm the only pitcher right now going deep. And me and Rick, and then it's like, DP all of a sudden when DP turned the corner, I'll say about DP. He struggled. The dude still threw 230 innings that year. And they said he had a bad year. And I'm like, 238 innings? I'll take it all day, right? But like just watching those guys go about their business on a day-to-day, regardless of whether they did good or bad, like that gave me more motivation. I'm like, dude, this is where I want to be. Like, I want to be one of these guys. And then all of a sudden, obviously, I made the All-Star team. I was like, I wasn't expecting that either. And then I was like, this is crazy. And then it's like, wow, man, like I belong. That's when I realized, like, man, I could pitch here. Like, because that's the thing when guys go up and down, up and down, up and down. Like I remember having some talks with people and I'm like, I don't know if I'm a big league pitcher. I was like, because every time I pitch, I get sent down because I got options and I'm not a star. Like if they need a spot, they're going to the guy with an option, regardless of how good you do. I mean, it's like that. Every organization does that. They have options and they use them because they can. And so, but yeah, 16-year was definitely a whirlwind.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm really glad that's, where I was familiar with you and obviously well-deserved and a lot of work put in. Now, after that year, you made only 5 appearances before needing surgery on your left knee. In 2018 and 19 for the Sox, you'd pitch in 26 games, a mix of starting and relief appearances before undergoing Tommy John surgery. And Steven, I'll give you credit that you came back and tried out for the Pirates in 2021. Now, In the last few years, we've seen analytics really take off in baseball. I don't know if you're familiar with sites like Fangraphs and Baseball Savant.
I know all about that crap.
Yeah. So they'll show you advanced stats on player tendencies that weren't available earlier in your career. So I know you last pitched in the majors in 2019, but if this was available during your peak years, do you think you would have used it?
No.
Really?
For what? What do I need it for?
When you look at players'
I need to know my
tendencies.
spin rate. Tendencies? Like, what do I need tendencies for? I throw a knuckleball. I throw one pitch.
If somebody has a high chase rate, like, okay, well, maybe I can, they have a low walk rate and a high K rate. So maybe I'm going to get them a little bit more out of the zone.
So this is how I go about a game, right? When I'm attacking a lineup, right? So I'm going to get beat with my knuckleball, no matter what, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at a guy like Mike Trout, right? He's the easiest one because everybody knows Trout. So when you look at his statistics throughout his career, right? He swings first pitch, first at bat like 15% of the time. It might even be lower. But you can't look at that. You look at what he's done the last 10 games.
Okay.
Because if you go into a game and you're like, well, through his career, he's, 12%, something low. You're like, okay, well, I'm going to take my odds, but maybe he's struggling. So now it's up to like 60%. I'm a knuckleballer. I ain't throwing him a fastball unless I have that 10% in my favor.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, it's Mike Trout. I'm throwing 84 miles an hour, right? So, like, at the end of the day, you have to always pitch to your strengths. And this is my problem with Rapsodo and Hawkeye and all this stuff. I think it's great. I really do. Like, it means nothing to me because of the type of pitcher that I am. But when it comes to a lot of these guys, right, their whole time they're scouting. The whole time, all their scouts are all looking at their spin rate, their spin efficiency, their angles, and all this extension and velocity. I'm like, at the end of the day, can you get somebody out? Because it doesn't matter what a freaking Rapsodo says. It doesn't matter what Hawkeye says. It doesn't matter that a guy swings the bat 110 miles an hour. Can he make contact? Right? Like, what does he do? Like, now strikeouts are through the roof. And it's like, now what are they going to do with now they got rid of all the sticky stuff, right? So now all of a sudden they get rid of the spider tack and all this when they get rid of all this grip stuff, and now all of a sudden you got guys that are throwing 100 miles an hour, they're throwing right down the freaking dick, and guys are taking it to the moon. Right? It's not pitching. They're not pitching. They're pitching to these saber or metrics. They're not pitching to the hitter. They're not going in and out, forward and back, up and down. Right? They're just I got a spin rate of 5,000 RPMs or whatever. I'm just going to throw that. And it's
that's kind of what you're talking about. I think there has been this art of pitching that's been kind of lost, with looking for someone that can just throw 98, but not necessarily 93 and, paint the corners. But I wanted to ask you, because we are primarily a fantasy football website. So I'm always curious, with athletes, like, do you have any relationship to fantasy sports? Like, did you play any at all, or do you play any now?
No, I tried one time. One of my trainers, who's Paul Bubkite, he was one of our trainers of the Red Sox. He's the head guy with the Phillies. So I was the owner, he was the GM, and he ran it all. And I think we went 2-0, and I'm like, oh, this is easy money. And I think we ended with 2 wins.
Oh, that will happen,
man. Like, I know it's a big thing. I got a lot of friends that are all about it.
Yeah,
dude, I just don't have time, dude. I don't even have cable. Like, I don't have
the sticks.
No, it's not. I just don't want it.
Oh, well, there you go.
Like where the world's going right now, everything's doom and gloom. It's live in fear. Everything's fear, fear, fear. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to live for the surroundings that I have.
There we go.
Right? Like, if my surroundings is going to dictate me to change, then I'll figure it out. But like, last year with COVID and all that, dude, I would have never known if I wasn't told that there was COVID, right? And I know, and don't get me wrong, I'm not downplaying it at all, but like, I'm not living from somebody's fear in New York because I don't live in New York.
Mm-hmm. I love it. The takeaway I'm getting, and to bring an animal reference, Steven's given the bird to the nerdy analytics that have never played baseball a day in their life and saying, you don't know what you're talking
That's another thing, dude. Like, and don't get me wrong, I know not everybody that coaches can play, but people are they are coaching and they are signing, they are drafting, they are doing all of this. Before it used to be potential, right? Well, now it's like, oh, this guy's got a good spin rate. It's like, okay, well, okay, like that's great. Like, what can he do? Like, can he get guys out? Does he have a 7 ERA? Oh, well, he's got a good spin rate though, so that's good. It's like, but he's got a 7 ERA, so we can't get nobody out. So how do you? There's certain things you can teach and certain things you can't. And
Sure.
being a gamer, you can't teach that. Like, you can't teach somebody just to step up when that's why guys like, you want guys like David Ortiz in the box when the game's on the line, is because he has the ability to do that, and something that you can't teach. You can only get it from experience. And even then, there's a lot of people that choke.
Well, let me ask you this, Steven. Is there somebody, like right now, starting pitcher, like if you were going to go watch a ball game or maybe watch one on TV, is there a starting pitcher that stands out the most to you
Max
right
Scherzer.
now? Max, yeah.
Scherzer. He's the best.
Bulldog.
He's one of the best I've ever seen. Like, just his ability to just, I mean, so this is what impresses me about Max Scherzer the most. It's not the fact that he throws 200 plus innings every year. Like, that is impressive. Don't get me wrong. I'm impressed like that. But it's the game, it's his bad games. So, like, if Max Scherzer gives up 7 runs, let's say he gives up 7 runs, which doesn't happen very often, he's still going 7 innings.
Mm-hmm.
He's still going 6+ innings. It doesn't matter what happens as far as the scoreboard. And I know that's a rarity for him to give up 7, but even if he gives up like 3 or 4 early on, right, 2nd or 3rd inning, he's still going in the 7th inning. Right. And you look at his pitch count, it's like he's hardly ever above 110, 115. And yet he is still throwing up. So that tells me that he trusts his stuff so much and has so much confidence in his stuff that he's just saying, here, hit it. Right. And his stuff's nasty. Right. He knows how to pitch, his ability to dissect lineups and stuff. But I would say secondly is DeGrom. Like,
2 studs.
Like, yeah, I think for DeGrom, I think obviously, like,
Are you a Mets fan now?
I'm not a Met. Well, dude, oh, hey, I'll play for them as much money as they're giving out. Hey, sign me.
There we go. There we go. We start the campaign.
You heard it first, guys. He's coming back.
No, I think with DeGrom, I mean, the one thing that's holding him back is his injuries this past year. I mean, but bro, dude, if that dude could stay, I mean, I was hurt all the time, so I feel like it's easier for me to say that because once I got hurt, it was like every year, like trying to come back too soon, trying to cut corners just to get back on the field and not fully healing. It just hindered me. So I think DeGrom this year, I think he's gonna go off. Having Scherzer next to him, like, come on, bro.
I love that.
Yeah.
We're talking with Steven Wright, the realest of the real, the man that threw the ball, that had hella movement. Steven, what we like to do, we like to get our guests out of here with a little triple play, rapid fire, some this or that questions. Not all these are baseball related. You game?
All right. Yeah.
All right. First, would you rather record a hold with 3 strikeouts or a save with no strikeouts?
Save.
Okay. I figured that was going that way. Light or dark roast coffee?
Dark.
Oh, all right. Well, we're not going on.
That one.
We're not getting coffee together then.
Oh, it's all right. I mean, if you, what do you put? You probably put cream in your coffee.
Of course.
Dude.
You just drink yours black?
Black, dude.
All right. Well, you're more masculine than I am. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't ask your pronouns because I don't care.
Would you rather be stranded in Antarctica or in the desert?
I would probably say the desert.
You don't think like the heat flashes and mirages would get to you? I mean, either way, you might die. I guess it's what
you're going to die either way. It depends on what. I mean,
we grew up near Riverside. That's desert out there.
I grew up in the desert, so I feel like I'm here to navigate myself, suck the blood from a snake.
All right. What is your favorite cereal?
Ooh, I would have to say probably like Cocoa Pebbles or something. I haven't eaten cereal in a long time, but I think that's the first one that comes to mind.
That's a great answer. I love Fruity Pebbles and Cocoa Pebbles.
All right. I'll allow that. Yeah. This one's from Marty right here. Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune? But we said you don't have cable.
Wheel of Fortune for sure.
There we go.
Jeopardy, dude. I think I've watched that too many times, and I think I got 2 answers. Way above my pay grade. I went to University of Hawaii.
I mean, I'll tell you what. There's nothing like watching Jeopardy to make you feel like you're stupid.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Would you rather find $10 on the ground or find all your missing socks?
$10.
You don't care about the socks? All
You
right.
buy new ones.
Buy new ones.
Would you rather step on a Lego or stub your toe on the corner of a bed?
Lego.
Yeah,
I do that every day, so my feet are used to it.
that's true. I've heard that's what having kids does.
Yeah.
We got the last two right here. Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck?
Probably 100 ducks.
You think you could take
100
them?
small ones.
It would be the kicking, right? You would do like a nice little leg kick. All right, so last one. You didn't pitch too long ago. What do you think you top out at?
Right now, 88.
Right now, 88.
Year I was born. I love it.
I did it 4 days ago.
Oh, I love you. So you didn't do 88 and see like, oh, can I get to 89? Can I get to 90?
Oh, dude, I ain't trying to blow my shoulder out. I mean,
Oh, that's true.
yeah, I'm not that stupid.
That's cool. You're still throwing though. That's great.
Oh yeah, I started playing catch with this kid that he goes to Vandy at Tommy John. I know it's tough, man, when you're not with a team and you're trying. I tried to do the whole rehab myself, and thank God I had good PTs here in Nashville and down in Birmingham. But this kid had Tommy John, and I'm just been playing catch with him. And I feel great. But I
don't push it. We don't want you to get injured.
No, I will. I mean, right now, I feel better physically than I have in the last 5 years. So I'm gonna.
So come back,
dude. It's too political, man. I don't know. It's becoming a shit show to say the least in baseball right now.
We don't want to dive into any more into that, Steven. We really appreciate you coming on. Before we get out of here, is there anything you want to plug to our audience? Stuff you're working on, where they can find you on the socials?
Man, I'm not really. I mean, I have social, but I'm not that active, man. I got no plugs, man.
Well,
love each other.
I'll plug this for him. You can follow him on Twitter at knucklepuck23 and on the Instagram at Steven WR, like wide receiver, but we know that's for Wright 32. Everybody, we appreciate you guys tuning in. However you consume Triple Play.